You're listening
to the CD Baby
Baby
DIY
Musician
Podcast.
Hey there, and welcome to another episode of the CD Baby DIY Musician Podcast. This is our Roundtable edition. My name is Kevin, and joining me are Robert and Chris. Hey, guys.
Greetings. Hey, what's happening?
And I have to give a shout out to Robert. Robert, I'm loving the new intro. Robert flexed a little production muscle and has been souping up our show a little bit, and that one I feel like we should be running out on some daytime talk show set in like some snazzy little suit or something. And
it sounds like a few of those people are pretty confused, though.
Really? Yeah, I don't know. It's possible. We should ask our audience.
Yeah. So thank you for that. And it's very entertaining. I laugh every time I hear it.
Excellent.
What else has been going on with you guys? I know, Chris, you just got back from another long tour south.
I did. It was great. We just did a week and a half down to San Diego and back. And
do we ever have like a roundtable episode when you're not just getting back from a tour?
Probably around Christmas time, right?
Yeah.
I won't go away then.
Good.
Promise.
Good. I was down in LA for a couple music conferences, which was an interesting experience. I met a lot of podcast listeners at the Taxi Road rally, so that was cool.
Very nice.
Cool. And Robert, you had an accident and hit your little noggin there.
Yeah, I don't know why my news is always the comic relief. But I fell off my bike and I gave myself a little bit of concussion, which means that I was a little dizzy for about a week. And if I start talking in tongues or
repeating myself
or losing my what was I talking about?
Nothing interesting.
All
Let's
right.
move on. Just kidding, Robert. We're glad your head's still in one piece.
Thank you.
All right, well, let's get into some news.
CD Baby.
Music.
Well, it's reported that gamers bought an average of 3.8 million tracks in a statement designed to highlight its self-appointed status as the preferred stage for music-based games, those being Guitar Hero and Rock Band. Microsoft released data showing gamers on average buy 3.8 million songs a month for either game, and have bought more than 45 million tracks for both to date across all installments of the respective franchises. Warner Music Group and Wilco are releasing free music through an app called playapp.com. Play apps are a single-file custom multimedia program that can contain music, pictures, lyrics, and video. The songs from Wilco's More Like the Moon EP are extractable as 192 kilobyte MP3 files, while the pictures are extractable as high-resolution JPEG files. Play apps can be created for any computer system, but are initially being developed for Windows Platform XP, Vista, or greater. The new iPhone software update is out, which includes new podcast support.
Yay.
So you can now download your favorite DIY musician podcast or CD Baby Music Discovery podcast straight to your iPhone. And lastly, in the news, Chinese Democracy, the new Guns N' Roses album, did officially release last week. And the only reason I thought I'd mention it is because I saw the headlines that there's controversy and China's upset, and I just thought, I don't even care what it's about. It's just nice to see a rock band back in the headlines with controversy and it being Guns N' Roses. Something just felt right about that.
How did the Chinese not know it was coming for the last 10 years?
Democracy?
So anyway, but the Wilco thing is interesting to see how that plays out and how that new format of releasing some sort of little program where there's more to it than just the MP3 files.
Good old Wilco.
And see what comes of that. Kind of along the lines with the whole Guns N' Roses thing, just music from that era is, being used in Guitar Hero and rock band, and it's generating a lot of sales.
Is the music that people are purchasing through those games stuff that is used in the game, so that they actually have plotted out all the music or the...
No, I mean, it's the songs that are used, but I mean, it's not like if you're referring to like the actual audio tracks where there's no guitar or whatever, or it's just guitar. It's just the music that's used in that, like, they use some Guns N' Roses stuff, they use some Aerosmith, they even have an Aerosmith.
So when you buy a game,
so they're just saying that those artists are seeing huge bump in sales because of those.
Okay, but all the songs that come with those games are already a part of the games. You see
but it's not the listening files. I mean, it's files that are geared to play along like you're playing the guitar. So if you stop playing, there's no. So
well,
it's not
for some reason, I was thinking
audio.
that maybe like if it came with like 12 songs you can play, but then maybe you can get like the bonus pack that has extra songs or something.
That'd be a good idea. I don't think I've only played one of the Guitar Heroes, and it didn't have anything. So, but that's a good idea.
But back to the application, I read a little bit about that and actually went to the website for the Wilco where you download the free application. I couldn't download it because it's just for Windows and I have a Mac, of course. But it's like a standalone application, like a widget pretty much, that when you're listening to the songs, it has its own navigation system. It's like its own player. And you can like fast forward through the songs, and each song has like pictures to go along with it. And the player itself is designed to go along with the album. So like, they on the website, they had all different bands that had basically designed their own widgets that would contain like 5 or 6 songs. You could download the songs that were just regular MP3s, but they also were sort of a part of this application, which, I think is an interesting idea. As far as this particular website, playapp.com, I think it's just kind of the beginning. It didn't seem to me super high quality or like they'd completely gelled the idea.
Yeah, that was my only thing when I looked at it. And if anyone's interested in checking out, it's playapp, PLAYAPP.com. So,
but it does seem like something that anybody can sign up for, like indie bands as well. Like it kind of, I'd have to look a little bit more into it, but it looked like it wasn't just mainstream. And actually, Wilco was the only name I recognized on there.
Yeah, it looked pretty indie when I was on there. So,
now, do you know if they're doing an exclusive or are they going to do a physical release too for the EP?
I would assume they'll do a physical release. There's no way Wilco's. I don't know. You never know.
They've done weirder things.
They've done weird things, but it just seems like because of them being tied to Warner Brothers.
And the website kind of felt like it was beta.
Yeah, it did. It's not flashy.
Yeah.
I was kind of surprised when I saw it. But it's be interesting to see where it goes. If Warner Music is throwing some support behind it, I'm sure that it'll be around for a little bit at least.
But the idea itself has sort of manifested itself in different ways. You see, well, we mentioned before, I think it was Snow Patrol put out an application for the iPhone that was an album and an application as well.
Yeah, so did Madonna. No, Pink did.
Pink did as well.
Yeah.
So you start to see this more. I mean, the digital format, people are starting to realize it's not just MP3. Like you can do a lot in digital.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm hoping that people develop some interesting things and maybe some advances in even just like how iPods and iPhones and all digital players work, where there's more interactivity with what's on the screen just besides looking at whatever picture's there. So,
yeah.
And the other thing with the new iPhone update, I think it's really cool that you can get your podcasts, but every time they update it, they make the podcast directory worse. I've been noticing that. I'm like, whoever's updating this must not listen to podcasts because they keep changing the way the podcast directory works. So that's my complaint.
Officially registered on our
Officially
own
registered
podcast.
right here. You heard it first. But let's move on.
Music.
Well, we interviewed Tim Westergren from Pandora on the last edition of the podcast, and I think Pandora is definitely one of those things that to continue to watch, and if you're not using Pandora, I definitely recommend it. It's a cool way to discover new music, and just the whole brains behind it, I think, is pretty intriguing on how they classify every song. And so it's definitely something that is changing. They're definitely a game changer as far as how people experience music in the future, whether it's them or someone else comes in and does something off of that idea. But the one thing that Tim brought up, and I think something that artists could definitely learn from, is the idea of how music is classified and how it's, they go through, and it was like 600 and some different attributes that they put to the music. And I think that on a broader scale, artists in general could do a much better job of just classifying their music properly in order for just more, for a broader chance of people just coming across their music on the web.
Yeah.
And I saw a quote from a blog that recently, I think it was this week, where they were talking about how the internet basically being eternal, and how your music being on there, it could sit there for years.
Yeah.
And if it's properly classified, somebody could come across it and find it useful. So I wanted to mention that. I find so many artists on CD Baby say they sound like U2, and I listen to it. Not even close. They say they sound like Radiohead. I'm like, I'm not sure if they've heard of Radiohead before.
Well, one of the really useful things, at least in Pandora, about having music that's classified so well is that, like, I recently have fallen in love with the station that I created that's basically like underground 90s rock, and I based it off a couple different bands like Dinosaur Jr. and Sebado. Like, if I listened to a radio station that was like 90s rock, I might hear like one Pixies song out of 20 songs of bands I didn't really want to listen to. But like, I'm actually able to create basically a nostalgic station for myself that plays all the music that I listened to in high school. And that's what I've been totally getting off on, recently is being able to listen to, like, create my own nostalgic station. Like,
I find it really curious, and this is a little bit like Googling your own name, but sometimes I'll go to Pandora and put my own band in, and then just see who they have determined sounds like
totally
my band. It's really fascinating.
And that's not a bad idea. I mean, because one of the things I was going to recommend to artists is that I think that artists most of the time list themselves as the bands they hope they sound like,
right?
Or bands
or their favorite bands,
or their favorite bands, and that's why I think you see the U2 reference and the Radiohead reference. Not to mention they're popular, but I think, like you're saying, listeners are getting a lot more savvy, and they're not just wanting the top 40 hits from 1990. They're wanting. Totally. The real music that was in that era that isn't going to be, the 5 tracks people remember from that year.
Yeah.
And so in order to be able to dig through that, you got to know and better classify it. So that's a good idea if your music's on Pandora to type in your name and see who they say you're similar to. But, if you don't have your music on Pandora, I think having like the local music editor, whatever, asking them to write a review or see who you sound like.
Yeah, and listen to your friends. I was playing in a band, and twice it was mentioned that, like, we kind of reminded them of Talking Heads. I think it may have been you who mentioned when you saw my group. It's like, you guys kind of remind me of Talking Heads. It never even crossed my mind. It's like, I love the Talking Heads, but like, it just happened to be that I think the diverse elements, the different influences in the band, like, sort of came together to put up a similar mixture of music that just sort of was on the same level as maybe what David Byrne was doing or whatever, and that was kind of a neat discovery for me. And sometimes they might say you sound like a band you don't like, which is not always the best thing. But I was lucky enough to be compared to a band that I liked, but had never really considered as like a serious influence, and that was educational.
Well, and it's hard when you're the artist. You're drawing on all these influences and spitting out, your own creative output, and it's hard to really classify it. And it's funny because I saw someone's page at CD Baby recently, and they were saying, our music can't be classified, and just go on. I'm like,
never say that. Never say that.
It's totally new.
I hate to break it to you, but it can, and it needs to be. That's the point that I want to make, is that it needs to be, because that's how people are finding it. They're finding it by real classifications. And if it's on the internet and you've got those attributes of your music down well and know how to input those keywords, the chances of someone discovering it just by random is greatly increased. And that's not the best way to, you're not going to see a ton of sales from that, but it can only help. And
if your music sounds like a rototiller mixed with, an opera singer mixed with, like a telephone ringing or something. Like you can call it, telephone ringing rotator music or whatever. Like there's a way to describe it.
Do we have that genre here at CD Baby?
I'm sure we do.
I think I heard that CD this morning, actually. What I love about the Pandora thing, though, and I've had a chance to question a few of these guys about their 600 long list of criteria, is just how everything can be classified. If you don't think it's totally unique, or if you think it is totally unique, they're going to go in and dissect that you use a certain kind of interval, a certain kind of chord change, a certain chord extension, every possible thing under the sun, and then they fit it into their system. It's just brilliant.
Well, and that's what's so interesting about the whole idea of what they've done, because I asked him if it could be duplicated by a computer or some sort of program, and I'm sure there's people trying. I've seen other things pop up on certain websites that are supposed to be similar. I don't know how accurate they are, and there's just something about listening with the human ear and being able to make those classifications that at this point a computer can't do.
Yeah.
And so I think it's kind of unique, and if Pandora ever goes down because of the whole royalty rates thing, which I think they've come to some sort of happy conclusion with.
They're not going to get yanked off the internet, at least not right now.
Well, if something goes down with that where they can't afford to pay, that whatever they're doing with that whole music genome project is going to get put to use to something else.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's
it's obviously
gonna be around.
valuable.
Yeah, and that you just can't start that from scratch. I mean, they'd been doing it for years before they even started the internet radio station.
Yeah.
So definitely something to keep watching. But I thought it'd be, I was thinking about music discovery and Pandora, and we started this new podcast at CD Baby, the Music Discovery Podcast, which I know everyone listening to this now subscribes to. But
right.
I was thinking a lot about how people come across new music and just how I personally come across new music, and thought I'd throw it out there and see what you guys do to discover new music. And so the floor is open.
Well, I'm kind of in an interesting position because my job at CD Baby is to listen to music all day long. So I hear, if we're just talking about truly independent music, I hear probably 100 new artists every day. As far as, maybe something on a label like Sub Pop or Merge or something like that, talking about indie rock, chances are I will see a band like Ockerville River. Their name will pop up in a bunch of CD Baby artists' sounds like descriptions. And if I see it enough times, I'll say, okay, I should go check this band out, because a lot of bands are saying they sound like this band. And then I normally go to Rhapsody, dial it up.
Does Rhapsody, do you have a Rhapsody account?
I do.
Okay. Yeah, I usually check it out on iTunes, but that's probably yeah, it's always different for me. A lot of times, I mean, some of it is brand recognition, like you mentioned, some of those labels, like I'll definitely pay attention to something that's on a record label that I think is put out like quality stuff, or stuff that I know that I like. And a lot of times it's sort of like repetition. If I hear something enough times, eventually, like I'll be on iTunes or on a website and I'll see that name and I'll just click on it because I've heard it enough times. Enough people talked about it, that I'm just like, I got to check out this group and see what's going on with it. Other times I just do searches, like especially if I'm looking for something obscure. Like for a while I was trying to find recordings of Chinese opera, and I had no idea like how to find Chinese opera, like who performed Chinese opera.
CDBaby.com.
Was this just a personal challenge? You thought, I'm going to find Chinese opera today.
No, I watched a movie that had all these solo performances of women and men singing these old Chinese opera songs. I was just like, this is the weirdest, most awesome music. I really
So it was the movie that was really the catalyst for looking for
so the movie was the catalyst. So I guess that could be an example.
Yeah, because that's I find that outside of CD Baby, because I do something different than Chris here, but I also too listen to a ton of music comes in, and a lot of the music that I've been listening to lately, I've just found here that's just been some amazing CDs that we get in, and just the other places I tend to look, I realize is I'll go poke around iTunes, but a lot of it is movies and TV where I'm finding bands that I like, and and getting online and checking it out.
I still check out print publications like Paste, and I'll even look at Rolling Stone and Spin and things like that. I'll check out Pitchfork usually every day, and if I see, similar to what you were saying, just repetition, if I see a band's name over and over again, finally I gotta go on Rhapsody and check it out.
Yeah,
I have noticed what you were saying, Chris, where I'll be on like CD Baby, and if I see people saying they sound like this artist a bunch and I haven't really heard of it, I'll check it out.
Because of what I do at CD Baby right now, I don't come across almost music ever, which is kind of sad because working for a music company. But since I'm working for Host Baby now and just basically working with websites, I'm very, I very rarely get a chance to check out new artists on CD Baby. It's tons of great music. But again, it's, and that's part of what, Kevin, you're doing with the new podcast. It's like, it takes work. There's so much great music out there. It takes some work, and it takes some, some smarts, programs like Pandora to really like suss out the good stuff and help people find what they're looking for.
I'm sure word of mouth is always still the favorite answer too. If you've got a music geek friend that says, oh, this new record is amazing.
The things that I thought it was interesting to look at the opposite side of that are the things that I no longer influenced by as far as like music is, one, definitely radio. I've hardly listened to any sort of real terrestrial radio, like traditional radio, broadcast radio in years.
Do you listen to extraterrestrial radio?
No, I don't. Well, maybe late at night, coast to coast AM.
Is that the Art Bell?
Yes.
Okay.
But it's just agonizing to sit there and listen to so many commercials and hear the same songs over and over. So I don't even mess with that. And the other thing, you mentioned magazines. I've gotten to the point where, I got like a free subscription to Spin, and I've gotten it for a year, and I have not once really taken anything seriously in there. I don't know. It's just like every week it's totally different bands. All these, it's just like every week or every month, it's just completely new, just stuff being marketed at you. It's like, here's another full magazine of bands you've never heard of. And it's not because they're all indie. I don't know. It's just weird that it's just like just so much stuff coming at you each time that is, I don't know. I don't really pay attention.
Publicists at work.
Yes, it is. And, it's great for bands to be in print, but it's just, I've just noticed for me, it's just like, I don't know. There's just not enough bands generating interesting stories. It's just like, here's the new favorite band. I mean, they even have those lists like the 20 songs you should be downloading now. And every time I look at them, like, I've never even heard of any of these. It's like, totally. Why do I care? Why do I take the time to go listen to all this stuff? So I don't know. That's just part of when I look at those, it's really hard to break through all the noise and kind of find out what I'm really going to key off of. That's what's cool about something like Pandora, where you type in what you like and you find new bands that are similar to what you like.
Definitely.
Well, let's get into some listener phone calls.
CD Baby Podcast.
Message line
206-426-5683.
The number you have dialed
206-426-5683.
Hey, this is Maura, and I have had my CDs on CD Baby since 2006. The one mistake that I made with my first album, Platinum Heart, was that I didn't focus on having a CD release party. I didn't target market in my local area. Because of the internet being so big, I kind of spread myself all over the place. And it may actually end up being a good thing, because now my second album, The Spiritual Girl, is out and ready to get up on iTunes and CD Baby. And I had a CD release party and sold 20 CDs right out the gate, and even got $100 for one of my CDs, kind of like a mini investor. And so now I know that I have to focus on my local coverage, since I've already focused on the broad coverage all over the world. So always keep in mind that it starts at home, and that's the most important thing. You can find me at www.amorainc.com. And CD Baby, thanks for making me independent.
This is Rumble from Combo 6. This is a story for the podcast. It was early one morning, 3:30 a.m. We had been playing on the beach party from 8 p.m. The night before Our goal was to play from 8 p.m. until 8 a.m., a total of 12-hour jam. We thought of everything, and we thought of lights, sounds, song sets, breaks, beer, smokes, babes, and 2 generators. The only thing we forgot was to bring the gas for the generators. To make matters worse, the nearest gas station was 60 miles away. Well, we did the next best thing. We siphoned all the gas from Slice's van, he's the guitar player, and Smash, the drummer, his car, and we got to play for about 6 hours on the amount of gas we were able to get out of both vehicles. So now we were just waiting for a friend to bring us some gas for the van and the car so we can get home and crash. The moral of this story is if you're going to build a fire, then don't forget to bring the gas. Combo 6, Rumble. Take you later.
Hello there, folks at CD Baby Podcast. My name is Otonio Lujan. I'm calling in with actually a question regarding the technical end of how you guys are doing interviews over phone. I noticed with Jonathan Colton, I believe it sounded like it was a phone interview. But I'm a musician that's been selling CDs on CD Baby for now probably at least 5 years. And we recently found out about the podcast series, and I've been listening to that and love it. I also run a nonprofit arts organization. We help visual artists much the same way CD Baby helps independent musicians. And we started our own podcast this last summer. Our website is actually sidestreet.org. That's SIDESTREET.org. And we're really fascinated about the ability to be able to do interviews over the phone because we've been going out and doing them in person, and sometimes it's not feasible to do that, especially with people living in other states, et cetera, et cetera. I want to be able to isolate, if possible, the phone conversation between the caller and the person actually doing the interview. All right, thanks, guys. Bye-bye.
Yes, this is Kadrae, K-A-D. R-A-E. I'm one of the artists that sell CDs, MP3s through your company and everything. I made a mistake last year by answering to an email that was sent to me by the company. And they were called Illumina Records, and they were offering me a chance to, be on the cover of their posters, magazines, all of that. And what they asked for was for me to send $299 to them. And I sent it to them and everything, but, I didn't get everything that was promised to me. They had sent me a contract through through my email and everything, with the signature signed and all that. And I printed up a copy of the contract, signed it, sent it back to them. And, and that they didn't live up to their promises. I sent them everything that they needed for me to send, and they didn't live up to their promises. So I just want everybody out there to just be very wary. If you're out there, if you have music that's on the internet and everything, if you just see somebody just send you an email right out the blue and you hadn't sent them an email, just to, be careful with that. All right. But thank you so much, and I thank you, CD Baby, for selling my CD and everything, and distributing it through various channels such as Apple's and Apple iTunes and Ruckus and Amazon.com. I have received sales from those companies and everything, and I just want to thank you, CD Baby. Thank you so much. All right.
Well, thank you for those phone calls. Yeah, you always got to watch out for people emailing you out of the blue. I know that artists that have stuff up on CD Baby tend to get spammed by people.
They're getting trickier and trickier. As much as I feel like I'm pretty savvy. Like recently, I've gotten some spam emails recently that I'm like this close to clicking on it and giving them personal information. There's one recently.
It can be convincing.
I got something from like a Chase Bank or something like that was asking me to that I needed to update info or something, and I know that stuff is a spam. I know it, but it just, I'm reading it.
Just felt so good. You wanted to put it in there.
I know. Luckily, I held back.
So, yeah, if somebody's emailing you, one, I always recommend people doing a little research before they send them any money, because there's a lot of people out there, even legit companies, that are making some claims that they can help you get your music out there, and some of them are good and some of them aren't. So it's always good to do a little research, talk to some other artists that have worked with them, email the company for that, some artists that can recommend, recommendation. And if they can't do that, then, you don't need to send them your money. There's always going to be somebody promising that they can help you out. So watch out for that. As for the recording of the phone calls, that's actually pretty simple, pretty low tech. It's just this little box. Robert, you got it somewhere on the internet? Yeah,
it's just a little converter box. Basically, you just run the you use a landline phone and you just plug the headset basically or handset into the box, and then out of that you have a little outgoing thing that you can plug into your recorder. And I can't remember the name of it now, but if you guys want to email us, I can.
It's really simple, and it's it just comes out of that. And we record the podcast on a Zoom H4, so we just send that out of the little converter box and into one channel, and then the mic into the other, and just record the phone call. And it's pretty simple, and it's been really handy because we've done a lot of phone interviews. And without that, it would be hard to get guests here in Portland.
And what we also do when we can, and this helps especially if you're interviewing people who are in the recording industry, is you ask them to record themselves and then send a digital file. And in some of our phone interviews, we're able to capture real audio, even though we're recording it using the box. They send us live audio of themselves recording. We've got live audio of our side of the conversation, and we just put them together, and it sounds, basically like you're in the same room, or at least you have a clear sound from both parties.
So like the interview I did with Carl Saff, the mastering engineer, that was actually over the phone, but we both had microphones on each end recording into our own gear, and then he just sent me the audio files. So that helps to make it sound like we're in the same room as opposed to...
And incidentally, that's how they do a lot of NPR interviews. Actually, they do what they call tape syncs, which are there's reporters all over the country that are part of this mailing list, and basically you say, I need to interview this person who's in this state at this time. Can anyone do a tape sync? And they'll pay somebody like $50 or $100 to just go stand there with a microphone in front of the person. So that's something else you could
How do they
look
get
into
the
doing.
audio from it? I mean, how do they hear the questions? Is the person asking the questions, or are they
They're actually using a telephone.
Oh, okay,
but
yeah.
Basically,
I see.
you just pay someone with their equipment to go stand there and record it, so they get that side.
Good side job.
Yeah, no kidding.
So again, we thank you for calling in with your feedback. If you're interested in calling our listener line, the number is 206-426-5683, and it's also on the website at cdbabypodcast.com. And all sorts of other good stuff. So
be sure to check out the new podcast.
Yeah, the new music discovery podcast that I am doing with one of our other editors, Peter. It's been fun playing a lot of new music. Right now we're playing a lot of Christmas music, so check it out. And we'll be back in a couple weeks with another episode. Take it easy.
Peace.
Bye.
You've been listening to the CD Baby DIY Musician Podcast, broadcasting from Portland, Oregon, USA.